why e-governance? So let us go to this the studies by 2011, and he had compared between these two, traditional government and e-government. You can see in the traditional government there are lots of bureaucratic controls, and then process centricity, isolated administrative functions and data collection, functional specialization, decision based on uniform rules, and awkward reporting approvals, isolated. So, and you can see the most important aspect here is the time-consuming process. If you remember before this, when you want to register, when you want to deal with the government, then you have to come early in the morning, because sometimes you have to line and maybe you have to wait until afternoon. Then you go to your turn. And for the e-government, because we want to streamline the processes, and because nowadays the government, everybody, the ecosystem need very quick information. So that's why, whether the government like it or not, so we have to do this e-governance, and to have the integrated resource service and knowledge focus, breakdown of the unit barrier, and then decision based on negotiation and basic controls and approvals. And then let's go to the other models. So we need to study, or we need to view, or maybe go through several models before we really understand this e-governance during this pandemic. Okay, let's take a look on several few models that I gathered in the website. Okay, here we talk about e-governance. The strength of the e-governance can say that nowadays simple and efficient. Most of the literature reviews, when we talk about e-governance, mention on this simple and efficient, transparency and accountability, easy maintenance, instant access, better service for the citizens, expanded reach of governance, cost-effective, and better security. Maybe this one is also similar to your country. And then for one of the slightly simple model, this one, I think the author of this model from India, so he mentioned about 4 variables: resources, technology, process, and also people to run this e-governance. And then the other one for this higher education, so these are the framework that made up this e-governance. The admission management system, the attendance management system, the library. Okay, for example, I would like to talk on the library. Sometimes some universities overlook on this library management system. So this is one of the important tool in this e-governance, because it's not only how many titles that the university should have, but also how do you ensure the processes, the turnaround of these books that you have in the library. So that's why we need this e-governance, because when you want to promote reading to the students, so we want to make sure that when they seek for the titles are there. They know when is the right time for them to come to the library to collect the books, and when is the right time for them to return back, or maybe some sort of something that will alert them they have to return back the books. So this is important. And then the examination management system, infrastructure management system, and then the transportation, especially to book bus, a coach, a car for the higher position staff or professors, and then the hostel management system, as well as when the students want to express whatever that they feel dissatisfied, we want to have all inputs from our stakeholders, right? Okay. And talk about this e-governance. Let's go. Let's make it clear, make it easy. So let's see. Oh, sorry. This one should be cons, not pros. This one pros against cons. Let's see the first one. Why e-governance? Because of convenience. So we want to have a convenient system for everybody, for stakeholders. Okay, and then transparency. This is important, especially when you award projects, award for this, what do you call it, for the supply chain management. So we need to be transparent, especially in the government, because we use in this e-governance, because sometimes the public money is there. And then quick and efficient. So these are the 4 important things, 4 pros for the e-governance. That's why for the universities, for the higher education, those are worry about this e-governance. Whether they like it or not, they have to invest in this. And then for the cons, number one, it's a bit expensive. Like I mentioned to you, if you want the system to be fast, you want the system to be responsive, you need to invest in the we need very stable servers. And then remote issue. So sometimes the stakeholders are not all of them stay within the city areas. Sometimes they stay because of this remote issue. They don't really have the connections. So we need to understand whether the information, whether the system can be used by these people that stay outside of city areas. And digital literacy, because this one, the problems that occurred during early 2000. And in fact, in Malaysia, the government has the program, we call it as digital divide. So where the government operate, or the government open as one designated, we call it something like institution or agency in the remote or in the suburban area that teach or that promote digital literacy to these urban people, urban folks. And safety and cyber attack, because even up until now, you can see people still line up at the bank. People still wake up in the early morning, go to the postal office for the transactions, because there are some people who still feel insecure about this e-governance. So that's why, even though we have pros and cons, so we have to weigh them, especially for this, older generation, the senior generation. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, for the university, now we talk about e-governance in the higher education, the topic that given to me. Okay, just now I mentioned to all of you of these 4 main business model for the e-governance: government G2G, government to government, government to business, government to employees, and government to customer. So, but for today, for this event, let us focus on these 2: the government to employee and the government to consumer. Okay, now the first one, for the government to employee, let's focus on staff, because we have academic, we have professors, we have the administrator, and also we have the operators, so support staff. Okay, so the most important here when we talk about this staff is more on the human resource issues. For example, like training, leadership, and other human resource affairs. So when I think if you want to refer to this e-governance, so we have to someone who should lead this e-governance, those who came from this human resource background, because we have to apply many disciplines or many knowledge from this human resource for this e-governance. And then for the students, the most important thing for the students is for the registrations. And then the next one, the resources, especially for them to get the materials. So nowadays, so how do you want to ensure that the students have the ability to retrieve all the information? For example, like I mentioned to you just now, when we talk about the library is, I would say, the most important agency or most important entity in the university. So we cannot overlook on the role of the library in the university. So that's why I think if you want to run this e-governance, the most important thing that you need to improve is the library. Okay, next I would like to share with you, like I mentioned just now, one of the important area in this e-governance, the leadership in Malaysia. So let's share a case study of Malaysia. So we have this one institute that we call it as Higher Education Leadership Academy, or the acronym is ACAP. So this is a special agency. This one agencies by the Ministry of Higher Education to promote leadership. So this one, when for the succession planning, and then for us to mold the future leaders. So this is the place. So the setup of this place is that we want to promote, or we want to mold future leader. They come here, undergo the training, and when they go out, so they have a fresh ideas, or maybe they have motivation to be leader in the future. Okay, so you look at this photo, it looks like quite small place, right? But let's go to see the facilities. Okay, the facilities is quite impressive. When you go there, you don't have to think about the problems that you have in your workplace. So you come here, then you can have this what I call it, maybe training seminars or any programs. So that's why those who like to improve their leadership skills, they can register. So they just go to the system and then they can register. Or else, the university who like to hold or to organize the leadership program, they also can come here because they have lots of modules. So that's why in this e-government, we have to share. And then we want to mold, we want to prepare the future leader. So we need a special place or special system that can help us to prepare this future leader. And this one by the Ministry of Higher Education. Let's go to the next one. This is by my university. So we have one building, special building located about 1 hour from the main campus. So when we want to go, when we have the training, so we have to drive all the way to this place. It will take us about 1 hour for me, let's say I have to go there. So they call it as Institute of Leadership and Development. So here we have about 400 rooms. It's like a hotel, but more to the training. Okay. So you can see here the facilities. This is some of the facilities that I can share with you. So the room can match the hotel room, and we have the classroom. So the dining hall, and then for sports facilities. Okay. So why it is important to have this kind of training facilities? Because of, okay, just now we mentioned about leadership and training, but why we have this? For the higher education system, so we need to understand that we are preparing future leader, and also we prepare the future workforce. So we want to have the quality workforce that will serve the industry and also serve the nation. Okay, the first one for this is the centralized governance. So it is important that we have one system for all. So that's why the ministry has adopted this kind of system where they have for all leadership programs will be organized in the premise that I mentioned to you just now, and then the one business model. So we can share. I mean, the universities in Malaysia can go to this and share the way to run the leadership programs and the walk of lives. We see that ecosystem, all the professors in Malaysia familiar with the system. So they're familiar with the place. When we say that you have a program in this ACAP, then they know that this is for the leadership program. And number two, investment in assets. E-governance, like I mentioned to you just now, it's not cheap. It's expensive. Like I showed you just now, the 2 buildings, it costs millions of dollars to build it. Okay, it's a strategic investment. So when you want to talk about this e-governance, so it's not like an idea. So it's investment. It's a strategic idea, strategic planning, investment. Okay, we have to always modernize and make it up to date. And then also, it's not only the startup investment, but also to maintain it. So the government also need to periodically maintain the system, maintain the assets. And the database, okay, the most important thing is that we can store and analyze the database, especially for the leadership and training. And all the systems, so you can get the feedback from the participants. So this is important for us to run the future training and leadership programs. And we can share the data with all the universities, all the higher education, sharing of module. If they cannot make it here, they can also share the module and make it in their premise. Okay. And one more thing, self-sustain. Okay, you go back, if I can share with you again, here, the facilities. So these facilities is also offered to the external stakeholders. So they can come here, if let's say they want to have training, they can also have it here. So meaning that they can book the place and pay the price, and they can have the training there. So have this kind of, when employees, especially not in the education line, when they have the training in this university, they feel proud, they feel happy. It will boost their confidence level. So this is something that we can, maybe in India also, you can start to try to apply it. Okay, and at the same time, what does it mean by self-sustain? Self-sustain here refers to the cash flow, so cash inflow. So it's not only when you want to maintain the place, you have to pay for the utility bills and all the maintenance, but also when you can sell it and you can offer it to outsiders, and also can bring cash inflow and also more business opportunities. Okay, and then for the e-governance, usually this one is, I took this one from Vienna Advantage German. Okay, we talk about the contract. For the governance, most important thing is for the contract, for the reporting and the policies, and also the service delivery. Okay, so these are the basic ideas of the e-governance, especially for the higher education. Okay, let's talk about the university. Go back to UITM. Okay, I mentioned to you just now, we have around 180,000. You imagine 180,000 students. In Malaysia, we only have about 32 million population. But the university, so the size of this university is bigger than one state in Malaysia. So you know how, when you want to run the system, so sometimes you have to offer decentralizations. So everything cannot be centralized in the main campus, because it's very difficult, and then you have to invest in in expensive ecosystem, expensive storage or servers. Okay, in order to make it more effective, the university has decentralized some of the functions. For example, number one, funding. And the government sometimes, so for the university, they give chance for several campuses to run their own funding, to manage their own campus. So it is also to empower the campus to run their own operation. And number two, but one thing is, I think I would say the challenges. One challenge in running decentralization is this. Go to the next point, endowment. So when we talk about the university, sometimes we have to focus on this endowment, because in the university, like us, we are public university. So usually the government will allocate budget every year. So it's a big budget, but somehow as time goes by, the government will slightly reduce the budget because they want us to self-sustain. But like this year, the government slashed the allocation up by 40%. So we need to generate income to sustain the operation, because we are big university. Okay, and then income generation, and one more thing, the proportion of income. The campus cannot do this on their own. So that's why the income in any campuses, they have to share equally with other campuses as well, because we are the same system. So it is like we call it a sharing is caring philosophy here. And then industrial attachment. So before this, usually handled by the main campus, but nowadays it has been decentralized to the individual campus, so they can do their own individual attachment, industry visit, and the strategic planning, and maybe memorandum of understanding with the industry players, so they can do on their own. That's what happened. And then exam management. So this is the only issue that we face up until now, when we want to have an item bank system. So the system is yet to be ready. So we have tried so many systems. Because why? Because we want to have a different date of exam. But up until now, we cannot make it. It's still work in process. It's still in the planning stage. Okay, but this is something that the university would like to offer as soon as possible. And then the convocation before this, the convocation will be organized in the main campus. But nowadays, each campuses can also organize their own convocation. So you imagine if let's say 20,000 students combo at the same day, so it's very difficult to hold the event, right? So that's why we have to decentralize this. Okay, we go to the main issue nowadays. We talk about this pandemic. So what happened during the pandemic? I think we speak the same language. So we have to observe the new normal, and we have to practice social distancing. We should have online meeting, that what we are doing right now, and also to practice work from home. Okay, for this is one of the study conducted in Egypt, and you see, okay, you can see the color here. Maybe you have seen this, but it's worth to share again. Okay, the first industry affected. So I belong to the industry, tourism and leisure, and we see here the education. So education is one of the impacted industry, especially to the private institution that that have enrollment from international students. So when they cannot come here, when the international border is closed, then how they want to to have students, how they want to operate to survive, right? Okay, so this is critical time for education system. Okay, e-governments during this pandemic, so we have to tackle this issue of remote areas and how to make the staff to stay productive, not only productive but also to stay creative. And there's no proven model yet because it happened all of a sudden. Okay, so we don't really ready for it, but somehow, even though the idea is in the pipeline, but somehow when this one is happen, then whether we like it or not, that we have to do it, and then we cannot cancel the semester. So the semester must go. We have to keep going with the semester, and that's why I said it's not an option, but the only choice that we have to do. Okay, so maybe this one is also affected. This will affect the e-governance of higher education. In the future, like I mentioned to you just now, for the education business, the shift towards localization for the private institution. So when they have international students, so they have to change. They must take this seriously, because in the future, maybe in the next year, maybe in the next 6 months to 1 year, and we can see the market will shift towards localization. So now, but some positive thing that they can take from out of this pandemic is the digital, this number 2. So in the future, this coming 6 months to 1 year is the time where the higher education need to practice or need to learn on digitization. So because in the future, those who have digital footprint will be the industry leader. And then definitely cash is king, because nowadays we move from the fixed cost model, especially to the higher education, to the variable cost model. So we have to change, because we have more fixed cost, right? I think everybody agree with this, but now we have to change to the variable cost model. And then have the sensing and control tower. And another important aspect here is the supply chain. So we need to understand on the value chain. So the future idea, the future research should look in this value creation, especially in this e-governance, especially in the higher education. Okay, remember after we call it in Malaysia, we call it movement control order, or MCO, but maybe in India we call it as lockdown. And the three important areas for this e-governance: number 1 is the financial, and then operational, and number 3 is the technology or data. Okay, I move on to next one. Okay, e-governance during this pandemic. So these are the issues that we heard, maybe we currently deal with. Okay, for example, the dissemination of information. So what best for us to disseminate the information? especially to the students, especially to the staff. Okay, so sometimes they heard about it in this social network, social media, because we must have, for example, like staff, it's easy that you can share in the email, but sometimes students, they don't really check the email. They prefer to use this, what do you call it, social networking, right? And then for online classes, so what is best for the best tool for the online classes? Because nowadays, the government, I mean, the university don't really have this the tools, the platform. So we have to use the external tools. I mean tools provided by third party, right? And then the cost assessment is changed. Before this, you have the final examination, but some university opt for no final exam. Some still do final exam, but sometimes you need to understand the remote issues, and then we have slightly limited budget. And okay, this is one thing that we can discuss: allocated budget, because some universities, you have this you call it something like cash budget, or maybe the budget from the previous year. So the university or the treasurer already allocated the budget to each departments. But starting, from March until June, so then during the lockdown, so the budget is freeze. That you don't really use it. So what happened to the budget? So do we, does the university want to rechannel the budget, or the university would like to still use in the same budget type? Okay, so this is something that need to be discussed by the ecosystem. Okay, and then work from home policy. Okay, how do you want to measure the successfulness of this work from home policy? Okay, you can say that how the this working from home. And training, we do things and to like we have to do 4 hours per year. And now when we undergo this online training, it's only like 1 hour to 2 hours. So how many trainings that they have to undergo to fulfill that training hours, right? And then another issue is the practical classes. Those with the practical aspect need to find ways what best to offer these practical classes, how to cover these practical classes. And then definitely the staffing over capacity, because nowadays we are running slightly less capacity, so we don't really need staff. But somehow for this university, they cannot simply terminate or lay off employees, lay off staff. So we have to make do with what we have. Not to make do, but we have to ensure that we are running on the right capacity, and we what do you call it? We give justice to all staff members. Okay. And for the university, for example, for my university, so for the course delivery during this pandemic, and we have no final exam. So we have in every courses, now we have to discuss, and then luckily the management discuss on this. So how many continuous assessment? So this is why the university need to be solid in this. So you have to ensure that everybody must speak the same language. So we must have like 5 to 6 continuous assessment, and then only online presentation. So we must make sure that the system is ready and everybody is using the same software, same system. And then the online platform. So need to empower the instructor. Use the popular tools. We must do the training during the initial stage of the pandemic. Okay, and then so in the university we have this open learning. So everybody must use this tool, and the university always monitor the staff for this future thing. And then the reporting. So how for reporting, working from home. So to do the weekly reporting for the class. So how many weeks? So we have to make sure, because the students, some of the students complain that they because of it's quite expensive for them, and sometimes because of the internet connection, so they cannot go weekly for this online learning. So somehow this is something that the university need to strategize on what best. So because we know that we cannot do it weekly, so maybe this several subjects have to do in alternate weeks. Okay, we have to make sure how many hours, how the duration hours for this online learning to take place. But so far, we are fortunate to have participation over 90%. And then the responsibility is clear. So every information will be given or will be directed by the Deputy Dean Academy and then passed to the head of program studies. So we know. So every information you have to wait the cue from this Deputy Dean Academy. So it is important to understand the chain of responsibility or the chain of direction during this pandemic. And for the online learning, I would like to share with you some of the, what we experienced this pandemic. Maybe you can also discuss later over there in India. So students have like about 8 student courses, and they have 3 to 16 assignments, 7 to 19 assignments for this pandemic, the semester, special semester pandemic. And then individual assignment, about 3 to 12. It depends on the number of courses that they take this semester. And hours spent from 5 to 5 hours each, and group project about 2 to 12. So, you know, in this turbulent time, crunch time, so all our minds will focus on this learning. Sometimes for maybe in this maybe 3 months or 3 to 6 months, so we can skip a little while for the other matters. So maybe administration matters, but all of us, maybe all the professors, need to find ways to make sure this online learning during pandemic will be successful. So we will deliver the best learning experience for the student. You know why? Because maybe in the future, the employer will argue with the university on how do you run this online learning during this pandemic. Okay, and finally, for this my last slide, for the most important features in e-governance, we must take care of this student, staff, vendor, and also international community. But you cannot don't overlook on parents, because during this pandemic, especially to the students, most of them have very little time. And I have run one. They said that let's say this online learning were to be continue next semester, some of them say they quit because they feel that they are demotivated. But somehow they said that their parents are the one who always keep motivating them that they can do it, and they said they will support all the way for the students to excel, to succeed during this crunch time. So that's why I said, for this, we need to understand for the existing features of the e-governance. So what best for us to meet the future expectation. Maybe we also have to do some sort of town hall, maybe the discussion between the ecosystem. So the best thing that we can run this e-governance to stay relevant, and also to ensure so the main the important customer in the university is the students. So you want to prepare the talented students during this pandemic. So we have to think of the best way to do it.